Israel says they've achieved all their war goals and have eliminated the nuclear threat from Iran. First of all, I don't know how that's eliminated, but alright, anyway. Did you really, though, manage to eliminate all your threats in Iran? Let's dig into what actually happened versus what Netanyahu and the Israeli state are claiming, and why they might be claiming something that's completely out of alignment with reality. Israel's stated war goal was simple: destroy Iran's nuclear program before they could build a bomb. I'll talk about the real behind the scenes war goals that the mainstream media just won't mention, and maybe analysis pieces that are 30, 40, 50 minutes long they'll mention, but you'll get the full details within 10 minutes. Mafi mushkila, no problem. You're welcome. It's for free as well. Okay, anyway, let's start with the public war goals of Israel. So, prevent Iran from building the bomb. Apparently, from before I was born, maybe from before you were born, they've been trying to prevent Iran from building a bomb. Like nuclear fusion, Iran's always been a few months away from building the bomb. Right? Basically, just activate that excuse whenever you want to start firing shots. Now, they hit Israeli preemptive strikes 3 major nuclear facilities at Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow. Trump even claimed Iran's nuclear facilities were, quote, completely and totally obliterated. Sounds impressive, right? But here's what independent experts are actually saying. Satellite imagery shows Iran prepared the sites for the strikes in advance. The American strikes, not the Israeli preemptive strikes. The strikes damaged buildings and infrastructure, yes. But experts believe the uranium stockpiles were spirited away well beforehand. The Iranians knew. Right? You thought about Israeli intelligence. How about some Iranian intelligence, bro? No, jokes aside, Iranian intelligence is nowhere near as capable as Israeli intelligence. I'm giving you the analytical facts, and that is a fact. But the Iranians knew. Maybe the Americans told them, right? Maybe the Americans told them. That is part of my theory, that America might have told them. They might have moved this stuff out. They symbolically dropped a few deadly GBU-57 MOPs, massive ordnance penetrators, just to say to Israel, look, I did stuff. And then Israel can't, say, you did nothing for us. Why am I paying you a big APAC big bucks for? Why am I, making it rain for? What am I making it rain for in America? Anyway, even worse for Israel. Some people have said, I laugh at my own jokes, and I have yet to hear a criticism or a complaint. They said it's actually good, it's refreshing that you laugh at your own jokes. And for better or worse, that is the reality. I laugh at my own jokes. What can I say? Okay, I think I'm quite funny sometimes. Anyway, even worse for Israel, beyond the fact that Iran spirited away their critical nuclear material before the B-2 bombings by America, even worse for Israel, Isfahan's underground facilities, where 60% reported publicly, 60% of Iran's enriched uranium was stored, they're fine. Like Ross from Friends, he's like, I'm fine. No, but Ross wasn't fine. But here, Iran is fine. For better or worse, I'm analytically assessing the situation. I'm fine, says Iran. And actually, they're probably fine. It's being widely reported that Iran's capabilities... have I become more and more unhinged as the days have gone by? Have I been reporting too much news? I feel like my stability, or a lot like, Iranian centrifuges before Stuxnet, or after Stuxnet, my stability is a bit helter-skelter, a bit all over the place. Anyway, let's try and refocus, okay? It's been widely reported that Iran's capabilities have not been degraded significantly, even, right? Let alone obliterated or annihilated. Their nuclear capability is fine, says Iran, says Russia, says China, right? No, they're not even close to not having the nuclear capabilities they had in the past. But remember, at a state level, fun fact, at a state level, Iran refuses to acknowledge that they're building a nuclear weapon. They say, no, our nuclear facilities are for peaceful purposes. Even though you need only 3% enrichment for peaceful purposes, and publicly we have 60%, but still, for research and medical purposes. Right? So they have a diplomatic cover that they say we're not building a bomb. Right? That's something at least. And Iran have said, our civilian nuclear program, you have not touched it. I can't say mafi mushkila. They speak Farsi. I don't know Farsi at the moment, but they say no problem in Farsi. Okay? We have no problem. Iran still has the knowledge, much of the equipment, and most importantly, the enriched uranium they've already enriched to carry on with their peaceful ambitions. Or their militaristic ambitions, right? Should they at some point in the future decide we're backing out of the NPT because being peaceful has led to nothing. It turns out the only language the West understands is the language of strength. Here's the blueprint for us and the rest of the world. Stand up to the bully, punch him in the face, poke him in the eye, he'll back off, because bullies they only deal with a one-way street. They can only dish out, they cannot take. So you must dish out, right? You must respond. Otherwise, they'll just keep beating you to a pulp because they're fine with that. Vis-a-vis the Palestinian territories, right? No army, no navy, no military, no army, no navy, no air force. For 2 years, the Palestinian civilians are suffering, by and large, the primary target of Israel's aggression there. 12 days into Iran, the Israelis are, the equivalent of saying, "Khalas, let's go, tafaddal, let's leave." The Hebrew equivalent of that, they've said they can't hack it. After 12 days, they can't hack it anymore. 12 days. Mad. Okay, now anyway, more on the NPT, potentially Iran backing out of the NPT in another video. This was not a decisive victory which Israel needed. It was an expensive theatre production that left the core of Iran's nuclear capabilities untouched. Right? That's the summary. Now, that's the coverage of the stated public goal. So thank you for watching. You can now leave, or you can stick around for the actual juicy bit, which is the behind-the-scenes secret goal that Israel actually had. It wasn't to do with nukes, fun fact. I'm not sure if it's fun, but it wasn't to do with nukes. They had a secret goal, right? Their actual goal, based on my analytical assessment, was to pull America into the conflict, use the US to generate true chaos in the region, ideally, in Israel's view, ideally with ground forces involved in the Middle East, once again, hopefully for Israel ending with the collapse of the Iranian state and paving the way, making an opening for a true endgame Israeli ambition, the establishment of Greater Israel. Yes, that's what we truly wanted. Yeah, right? That's basically the my analytical assessment leads me to conclude, with the intelligence I have access to and the facts and the news articles and the research I've done, Israel wanted to pull the US in and work towards a greater Israel. And to work towards a greater Israel, you need to disable the Iranian threat. The last bastion in opposition to Israel is Iran. That's why so many people, citizens-wise, in the Middle East support Iran. They don't have to be Shia, they don't have to be Iranian. They just support the Iranians anyway. Why? Because they're the only ones that the Middle Eastern citizenry opposed to Israel can support. Everyone else is well within the American sphere of influence. In later videos, I talk about how they are moving out, though. Times are changing. Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Turkey, Misr or Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, they're all leaving, right? Syria, Iraq, they're all leaving. Maybe not Iraq. The point is, it's not looking ideal for those under the American sphere of influence. And it's definitely not looking ideal for Israel, because the last one who was out of the American sphere of influence just, basically won this latest round. Israel wants a greater Israel with expanded territory, better borders to ensure strategic depth, to make sure that if the US does indeed leave in the future, the colony can survive without the mothership, as it were. It can become self-sufficient, essentially. But to get there, Iran needs to be defeated. That was their goal. That was their goal for this conflict. Now here's my conclusion. The Israeli goal not only was not achieved, here's the kicker, or the kick in the teeth, the salt poured on the wound. Okay, you get the point. They're actually further from the goal now than before they attacked on June 13th. They tried getting closer to their goal of Greater Israel and no opposition in the region. They're actually one step back now. You have a ceasefire reached, Iran looking very strong, Israel looking very weak. The US made it clear they would not blindly follow Israel into a war, despite Israel trying to drag the US into war. Iran demonstrated weaponry that gave Israel's 4 layers of air defense, Western-made, cutting-edge, apparently the best in the world, a run for its money, with sanctioned Iran managing to build weapons that Israel couldn't stop 100% of the time. And most terrifyingly, it could be argued, Iran's state resilience looks lethal. Let me explain. I'll elaborate in a future video. Israel systematically assassinated over 20 senior military commanders, some of them the heads of branches of military, an attempted decapitation strike to cut the head off the enemy's military leadership that could have brought other nations to their knees, begging for forgiveness. Please, forgive us. Stop. We can't manage anymore. We have no leaders left. But Iran was ready for this. Their nation and their army were built and are built for resilience. So new people stepped up to the plate to replace the fallen people, and they just carried on business as usual. The Israeli nightmare scenario has played out. They've failed their public war goals. They failed their private war goals. It's not looking good if you're the Israeli state. I'll see you on the next one. I've run out.